Good afternoon from the Real Deal Kitchen. It has been somewhat of a busy week here, prepping wonderful spreads and sauces from what is emerging more and more as the native summer produce, peppers, tomatoes, eating fresh corn on the cob, eggplant, charring eggplant and breaking that down in a food processor to make a very non-regional spread called baba ganoush with tahini and lemon and roasted garlic and paprika and a few other spices. And that brings me a little to uh, how interesting it has keeps being revealed to me over and over as I talk about food and things here. Uh, the awareness of how much my taste diversions are have evolved over the years for myself into areas that are very non-native, say from my upbringing. And I spent some wonderful time with a very dear friend from childhood yesterday, and we've somewhat very wonderfully beginning to reconnect and reconfigure our relationship as adults. And she, with her food interests, and has very much stayed true to where she has come from with her Italian roots and her family having Italian restaurants and pizzerias and things of this nature. And we were talking a little bit about food yesterday. That, believe it or not, the conversation was not entirely about that, but interestingly, about her wanting to explore more for herself her own heritage and relationship with food, and wanting to start where she is with her family traditions. And that is so fantastic, the diverseness of where we can all come together and move apart, and so in well, that's a huge metaphor for life in general, especially now in the world. Well, always in the world, really. But it's been making me think a lot about how I've been feeling lately with this time that I've been starting to spend at my home in Brooklyn, and how, in a way, I have two places that are home. My not exactly childhood home, because this where I am at my mom's is not my childhood home, but it's where my mom is. It's where I spend time, with my dad. It's where I've been doing my healing and nesting for all of that. So, ways in which I have uh, made this my home, but then also going back after a full year of not being in the home that I've created with my beloved in Brooklyn, and the wonderful feeling that it was that I landed back in the space that was ours and mine, and it felt extraordinarily seamless. And I think there's something to be said for that, because in certain areas of my life, I've claimed myself and staked my ground. And I think that this speaks to our inner resources. So as much as I've been speaking about food and having the pantry as your resource for what you're going to create, whether that be flavors that are more spice oriented, spice and nut oriented, or whether that be flavors that are more herb and allium and related, or whether that be meat sauces or cream sauces or no sauces, or uh, uh, tomato and roasted pepper sauces, whatever that may be, um, that you know where you're coming from. And the only the only way to know where you're coming from is to spend time with yourself. And this is a very intimate endeavor. and very difficult for most of us to sit with ourselves, to be with ourselves, to inhabit our bodies. Everyone's running around and practicing yoga and going to spin classes and running around in general to feel better in themselves, and yet it's never enough. And at some point, does anyone ask themselves, why is this never enough? Or why is cooking at home never satisfying enough? Or why can't I get into cooking at home? And I firmly believe that it's not coming from something that's anchored in you, a relationship that you have cultivated with what you're making, knowing where you come from or where you're coming from, whether that be with food or yourself, so that if you were to be uplifted suddenly from what is your home, would you know what you're going back to? And I am sure that many would, but I also know, because of the work that I've done with many people over the years, that that's not necessarily true as well. And so it just brings me to this, I guess, somewhat fervent desire to encourage everyone to not only build your pantry, but build the inner pantry, the knowing of yourself. And one of the best ways to do that is not running around and spinning and running 10 miles and learning how to put your leg behind your head, but it is simply sitting with yourself. And this has so been reminded to me because of my current circumstances, and it took a while for me to come back into taking a seat, if you will, because simply because I sit in this chair doesn't mean that I've taken a seat with meditation or self-contemplation. And it doesn't have to be as heavy as self-contemplation. It's simply setting time aside for some moments every day. And I will always encourage that time be in the morning, because for any of us, no matter how skilled a practitioner we become in things in life, once the engine gets revved over, it's difficult to get back to the seat. But there are 2 times of the day that are ideal, the morning being the most, and then as the evening comes, as we're winding down. But many of us don't have that space in the sundown time, simply because of modern life. If you do, if you find ways to create that, which there are many ways to find to create these spaces, and that's maybe the subject of another ramble, one of my coaching programs, but it's not really why I'm here to speak, but I'll throw it out there. There's never the right time to take time for yourself. And that goes for the meditation, that goes for taking on a coaching and commitment with someone, goes to taking on a yoga practice, or taking on some time to shift your diet or to explore new things. Never the perfect time for those things. So we work with what we've been given, and then we make a choice. And so the choice to sit, for me, and I would offer to any of you, for 5 minutes, 2 minutes. I mean, that truly isn't enough, but even if that's what you had to start with, to build up from there to 10 minutes, to 20 minutes, to 30 minutes every day, give that to yourself, to sit, follow your breath. Thoughts come in, let the thoughts come in. It's not about not having thoughts, it's what you do with them when they arise. So let them come through, acknowledge them, and just return yourself as you can to the breath. Breathing in, breathing out. If you have a rosary, if you have a mala bead, if you have something to hold on to rub, it's another gesture, reminder. Those are really meant for mantra or prayer, but also just having it in your lap is a way of grounding and coming back to your breath. As the thoughts come, you will notice that your hand is off the bead. off with other bead, with the bead or the mantra or the prayer that you may love to have in your mind. And so then you're reminded, come back to that, come back to the breath, come back to yourself. It's coming back to yourself. And that building that inner resource is the way that we can travel through challenging moments in life. I've had many challenging moments over the last year, and in some ways the waters are relatively calm right now, and I don't want to get into a head of, oh well, I don't want to rest on that smooth water. I don't want to get into the head of, oh, what's next, but I also don't want to take for granted what is right now. And so you know, to be able to be in this space of being with what is very challenging when one is met with a challenge. It's challenging when one is just met with the challenges of daily life. So coming back to yourself, the breath, the inner resource, you know, let's take a moment right now. Just simply close your eyes. If you followed this far, and breathe in through your nose. Fill up your belly, and breathe out through your mouth, relaxing your throat, relaxing the jaw, relaxing your chest, relaxing the belly, relaxing the legs, and taking one more breath in, perhaps thinking about drawing the breath in from your feet, up through the body, the top of your head, full belly, and then letting the breath come out, relaxing the brow, relaxing your throat, relaxing your ears, relaxing the chest, relaxing the belly, relaxing your hips, out through your legs and feet. Just a few breaths like that changes the tenor of your relationship with yourself. And then once we build on that, changing relationship with self, that is where we begin to then change the relationship of ourself to life around us. And those are the small steps, the building blocks to the bigger pieces that we all rant and rave about all the time. Whether it be global warming or politics, you know, the environment. What about your inner environment? What are you doing to take care of your inner environment? Recycling is fantastic and necessary, but I often find that people are not taking care of their inner environment as well as they're taking care of how they think they're taking care of the outer environment. So there needs to be a coming together, bringing the hands to prayer. The sun and the moon, they're always in existence here, as long as we're here breathing on the planet and after. Unless we do something crazy as humans to take that away, which is, anyway, we're not going to go down there. I'm going to say, here's my talk for today. Lots of summer sauces. I know I haven't given a lot. If you read down, I often will write a recipe out. And so go that far. Check out the blog at bonerootherb.com. And there's a semi-recent recipe there. And there's a recipe for there a couple of, well, probably a year back, for a fantastic zucchini carrot bread. But this is a wonderful zucchini walnut bread that we made today. And the recipes are very similar, and I will take the time to write this recipe below, and I hope that you've watched through to this point. This is a really long one, but take care, all of you, and thank you for joining us in the Real Deal Kitchen. Until the next time, be well.